The information provided by Trading Forex Price Action to you does not constitute personal financial advice. The information provided is of a general nature only and does not take into account your individual objectives, financial situation, or needs. It should not be used, relied upon, or treated as a substitute for specific professional advice. Hey guys, this is a midweek analysis for April 20th of 2022. Alright, let's start off with the pound dollar. Okay, this is a daily chart. Let me run you by the current setup I'm looking at. So the last daily short trade that formed was right here, while the last daily long trade that formed was right here. Now, strictly going from a daily strength perspective, there's more long strength than short strength. So typically the bias will be long on this daily chart, or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low. However, if you recall my forecast, I was mentioning there is strong short strength on the lower time frames for the time being. And when it comes to biases, the lower time frame confirmations have the ultimate say. So at this point in time, the lower time frames are confirming a short bias. Or in other words, price is likely to reach this pivot low before reaching this pivot high. So let me show you what I'm looking for in terms of lower time frame confirmation so I could trade this daily bias. Let's go over to the 1 hour chart. Okay, so on this 1 hour chart, in terms of lower time frame confirmations, there's been two signs of 1 hour strong short strength. Now one of those is from this trend line, from this pivot to this pivot right here. And the other is from this pivot to this pivot right here. Now, as you can see on both of these trend lines, there was a breakout and an immediate break back in. Now both of these signal normal long strength. However, at the same time, both of these actually hit this pivot low where that normal long strength was created. Thus, both of these actually create strong 1 hour short strength. Now, however, I did not take these short entries. Or if I were to take a short trade along with that daily bias, the stop loss will be way above at higher levels, while the main target is right here at this level. So the risk and reward was not up to par. And so for the time being, in order for me to take a daily bias trade at current levels, it has to be a long trade. Again, because the stop loss for a long trade will be at this level, while the main target will be way above at higher levels, giving me a good risk and reward ratio. So in order for me to take a daily long bias trade, I'm going to need 1 hour and above lower time frame confirmation of long strength that can overpower this short strength created here. Okay, so here are the trend lines I'm looking at for possible long strength. So let me just get rid of these. Okay, so one of the trend lines is from this pivot to this pivot right here. And the other will be from this pivot to this pivot right here. Now price could come up to either of these trend lines, break it out, and immediately break back in, signaling normal short strength. However, price could still come back up to the pivot high where that normal strength was created. That will signal strong long strength. That will confirm some long strength, which will allow me to make that daily bias into long and thus take a long entry. Again, with the stop loss at this pivot low and the main target way above, like I explained to you on the daily chart earlier. Okay, so for the time being, I'll be watching these two trend lines to see if I could get some long, strong strength so I could take a long entry. Okay, so let's go on to the Nzdusd USD pair. Okay, this is a daily chart. Let me run you by the setup I was looking at recently. So the last daily long trade that formed was right here, while the last daily short trade that formed was right here. Now, upon determining the direction of this daily bias, if you recall, I was mentioning in these areas right here, there was already signs of strong short strength on the 4 hour chart, showing that price is likely to fall from these levels. And then moreover, if you recall, there was lower time frame short strength that formed in this area right here. And so at this point, I determined that this daily bias was actually short. Or in other words, price was likely to reach this pivot low before reaching this pivot high. And so I took a short entry roughly at the 69.08 levels. And as price came all the way down to these levels, there were never any signs of strong long strength. And so I was maintaining that short position. However, right after, there was a 1 hour double bottom that formed that actually reached this target height, which actually signals 1 hour long strength. And so on this slight pullback to the 68.77 levels, I aborted that short entry that I entered at these levels up here. And then moreover, as price fell all the way down to these levels, I waited for a pullback to these levels right here and actually took a long entry. Now that was based on the idea that this previous 1 hour fake double bottom reaching this target height level created strong long strength and thus changed this daily bias into long. Or in other words, price was likely to reach this pivot high before reaching this pivot low. However, price continued its descent all the way down to these levels, where if you recall, I was mentioning there was a possible 4 hour strong short strength that formed. However, I did not abort that long entry due to the interpretation that this 4 hour strong short strength was not legitimate. However, I was proven wrong, and that stop loss level was hit right here this week. And so I took a full loss on this long entry right here. So let me go ahead and show you what I learned from this loss. So let's go over to the 4 hour chart. Okay, so on this 4 hour chart, if you recall in my forecast, I was mentioning that this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here, with a breakout and immediate break back in, signaling normal long strength. However, price came right back down to stop it out on last Friday, creating strong short strength. Now my interpretation of this strong short strength was not legitimate because ever so slightly, this first peak right here was not tall enough. However, since the main stop loss level for that daily bias was hit at this level, first of all, that proves to me that this height was actually enough for a legitimate trend line for lower time frame confirmation. However, there's a more important lesson that I learned. So let me get rid of these. Now, if you recall about a week ago, when the 1 hour fake double bottom formed that reached this target height level right here, confirming strong 1 hour long strength, I was also mentioning that it is very uncommon for price to fall this low past that pivot low where that double bottom formed. And that's why I was waiting for a pullback all the way back up above that double bottom's lows price level right here for that long entry. Now this uncommon situation itself should have been a warning to me, saying that there's an extreme amount of short strength on this pair, and thus should have also hinted to me that this trendline breakout confirmation of strong short strength was in fact legitimate. So the bottom line of what I learned is that when I'm up on the fence about the legitimacy of lower confirmation element, like how I was up on the fence about how high this first peak should be, I must take into consideration the past abnormal price action that formed right here that was already showing signs of extreme short strength. So the next time a situation like this occurs, and again if I'm up on the fence about the legitimacy of lower confirmation aesthetics, I'm going to take into account prior abnormal price action into the analysis of whether or not an element of lower confirmation is legitimate or not. And thus, the long entry that I entered at this level right here, I could have not entered this long trade, or moreover, I could have aborted that short trade with a small profit at this level, seeing that this price action was abnormal. And as a final move, I could have aborted this long entry at this point right here when this short strength was confirmed, which would have saved me about 20 to 30 pips with the losses. Okay, so the Nzdusd's bias is back to neutral at this point, and I'll keep you guys updated for further biases on this pair. Okay, and that's it for the midweek analysis. Now just a word of advice in terms of dealing with losses in trading. Like I showed you on the Nzdusd loss that I took, because of the loss, I was able to further fine-tune my strategy, and therefore I don't have any emotional attachments to the loss. So just remember, when you take a loss in your trading, focusing on how you could better your strategy rather than the monetary loss will help mitigate the emotional uprise you may encounter. And just remember, a loss is not a loss as long as you learn something from it. Okay, so I hope you guys have a great rest of the week, and thanks for watching, guys. Okay, bye.